one of the newer additions to the Olight family, the M2T Tactical Light. With a pocket-friendly size and 1200 lumens of max output, this versatile little light offers a relatively affordable solution for law enforcement and enthusiasts alike. This flashlight, as you'll see here, is very similar to the M2R Warrior. They in fact have almost identical bodies on them, the main difference being the tail cap, where you'll see that the M2R Warrior has a metallic tail cap that allows you to clip the magnetic clip-on that's included with it to charge the battery without having to remove it from the flashlight, whereas this M2T is a rubberized tactical on switch. This is also a switch that you can turn the light on with, but obviously it's different for recharging the battery. This light does come with two CR123 batteries totaling 6 volts that you can use, but it will also accept a rechargeable 18650, which I recommend. And as you can see on the back where it gets into run times, you'll get better battery life using the rechargeable battery, and also higher brightnesses on the turbo mode that way instead. And as a personal opinion, I would prefer to use the rechargeable 18650 anyway, because CR123s tend to be fairly expensive to buy in stores, and you can get rechargeable ones, but 2 of those as rechargeable batteries still doesn't have the capacity of one 18650. So if you do go the rechargeable route, it's usually better to opt for that way. The M2T offers between 5 and 6 main brightness modes that you'll see again on the back of this box here, all the way down to a moon mode. If you just need a very, very minimal amount of light for as long as possible, you can get 30 to 50 days depending on your battery, and going all the way up to its turbo mode where you get between 900 and 1200 lumens. I will note, since we were just comparing this to the M2R, that's another small difference, is that the M2R can get up to 1500 lumens instead of 1200. Although I did find in testing them that the difference between those isn't really that noticeable. Mostly I noticed that it seems to throw a little bit further, but at a medium range, the actual volume of light isn't that big of a difference. The beginning part of my auditioning this flashlight involved using the CR123 batteries. After that, though, I used one of the spare 18650s that I had lying around the house to test the difference in brightness myself with the high and the turbo mode, and definitely can confirm it is brighter, and it did seem to last longer. I did use it enough to run down the batteries about 1 time with each type of battery. The light is pretty bright for its size, which is the same thing that struck me when I had used the M2R. I think it makes for a great all-around light because it's barely bigger than the pocket-sized other lights that I've reviewed that are in the description, like the S2R, that for a long time had been my everyday light. But this is just barely bigger and so much brighter and shoots so much farther and still pocket friendly that it really kind of carves out such a wide niche in the collection. And this light, very similar in that regard, same size, very similar brightness. Popping into the turbo mode at night on a freshly charged battery is very impressive, although, like I said, turbo mode on either set of batteries, even the 900 lumens off of the CR123s, was pretty nice. On a dark night where the yard is not illuminated, definitely blew everything up. And as you'd expect with all of these brightness modes, the M2T balancing the battery-saving low light options with the high output gives it a use for almost any occasion. I personally found that the higher of the 2 medium modes, which you get on the 18650, was a really nice balance for walking around at night and indoor usage as well. But if you're going to be inside in smaller spaces or where the room is lit up a little bit, regular medium mode suffices for most things. You could probably get by on the low mode for indoor usage, but at the same time, you probably didn't buy a $70 to $100 tactical flashlight to use the low mode most of the time. This flashlight isn't a spectacular thrower, but it certainly covers a moderate distance pretty well on the high and the turbo mode. My yard is probably about 30 yards deep, and it does a great job of hitting from my house all the way to the very back of the yard on those modes in pretty good detail. It's funny, as I continue to use this, the types of features that you see in other flashlights that at the time you never really considered that important, but once you don't have them, you realize that you kind of miss them. In this case, again, comparing to the M2R, and some of the other Olights in the series that I've used that have the magnetic tail chargers, you'd think, well, if you have a 18650 battery in this, you could still just take the battery out and charge it fairly easily with a charger like this. This kind of intelligent charger will charge pretty much any type of battery, AA's, AAA's, 18650s, etc. It's not that difficult to take the battery out and put it in that, but there is really something to be said for, much like you do with your cell phone, just snapping a charger out of the flashlight exactly like it is and having a little green indicator light when it's ready to use again. Your mileage may vary there. It may not really be important to you to have a feature like that, but it's worth noting that if you don't have a specialized charger like this to charge 18650 batteries, then it's something you're going to have to buy if you want to use rechargeables with this light. Whereas buying a flashlight that's a little bit more expensive, like the M2R that's about $99 instead of $79, saves you from that expense if you don't want to have to do that. On the other hand, if you already have a charger or are planning to mostly use the CR123 batteries that come with the M2T, the lower price tag may be a better option for you. It's actually $69 at the time of this review. Also, a note I wanted to make regarding the tail switch with the M2R that I've been comparing it to. Some people reported, back when this was a new light, that they had an issue where if it was submerged or it touched something metallic that went across this, it could short the whole light out. I tried to recreate that myself, and I got it to do it a couple times with a paper clip touched really firmly against the entire back, but I would say in my experience it was actually pretty hard to get it to short out, so I don't really consider that much of a drawback for this light. It's not like it happens easily or often, but it is something I felt was worth noting, that if that's a concern of yours, obviously the difference in the M2T is the rubberized tail switch. That might be better for you if you're concerned about that. Regarding build quality and general thoughts, in my opinion, all of the tactical flashlights Olight has put out in the last year or so really show a lot of refinement in build quality. That's not to say their lights were ever poorly built years ago, but I do remember my first T25 tactical light having a bit of battery rattle when you would shake the flashlight, and its design was very cylindrical, so when you would set it on a table, it would tend to roll a lot. Where you contrast that with newer lights like this, the nice hexagon-shaped bezel area, every aspect of it very clearly designed for the user to prevent things like that. Nice knurling here to give you a grip even when it's wet, and then vertical knurling there to make it very easy to twist the cap off to take the battery out. It's just really well thought out. And also, there are no rattle problems on any of the more recent Olights that I've used. Batteries fit very snugly inside without being difficult to remove. It's a bit of a nitpick of mine, but I thumbs up the consistent build quality Olight has put into their more recent lights. Having IPX8 water resistance is also a nice feature. If you drop the light in a puddle or a stream, if you're outdoors using it, it's good to know you're not going to short the light out or fry anything. You can pretty much just pick it up, shake it off, and be good to go. Olight's UI for switching the brightness modes is simple. One push of this button here and you'll turn the light on, press it and hold it, and it will cycle between modes in ascending order from low all the way up to high. If you want to go into turbo, you can double tap this button. When you turn it off and then back on, it will remember the mode that you were on before turbo, and you can also use the tail switch on the back for momentary turbo. I do like that. In the past, I've sort of avoided lights with too many modes just because I found it cumbersome to switch between them. But with this kind of UI setup, it's so easy, and because it remembers the mode you're in, having 5 or 6 brightness modes is not cumbersome. It's actually pretty useful, even though personally I find that I end up pretty much just using one of the medium modes and the higher turbo mode all the time. So from my usage, the light basically has 2 modes. Otherwise, this is a very nice light. Like I said, it's got a lower price tag than the very similar M2R. You kind of just need to make the decision on whether an extra 300 lumens will be useful to you, and if the ability to charge it in the back is something that you think you're going to use to justify the extra $30 or so in the price. If you already own one, there's no reason to have the other, but this is a very well-built light that's pretty versatile, both in the amount of modes that it can do and in the types of batteries that you can put in it. Don't really have any major gripes about it other than, like I said, I've gotten used to the magnetic charging ability myself, so I prefer less to have this rubberized switch, but that's probably perfect for a lot of people. And like all the lights that I've tried recently, I like that Olight thinks of all the little things. They have a pin attached to this loop that when you first are threading it through this gap there, it makes it a lot easier than I've had on lights in the past. Just a little nicety for your first time setup on the light. Thought I'd comment about that there for what that's worth. Hopefully this was helpful if you've been thinking of getting one of these lights yourself, and leave me a comment or ask some questions below for anything specific you were wondering about on the light, and I will answer it if I can. Thanks, guys.